Good day, everyone. My name is Dion Maynes from Talend, and thank you for attending our session today. And first of all, I'd like to thank Big Data and AI Toronto for having us at this session. These are always great sessions, and we're always proud to sponsor them. So for those who don't know a lot about Talend, I'm just going to go quickly into a little bit about who we are. So Talend is a leader in data integration and integrity. We do end-to-end data management from mainframe all the way to the cloud, all the way on to your next big data adventure that you'll be on. And we have over 4,750 global customers. That includes a great list of customers in Canada that are three of the big five banks. We have more than half of the telcos in Canada, some of the biggest manufacturers, retail companies. The list goes on and is expanding every day. We also have deep partnerships across the board. One of the good things that we're very proud about at Talend is our partnerships with companies like AWS and Microsoft and Snowflake and Databricks. All of these companies and all of the new and up and coming companies that are changing the way we deal with our data every day are stitching our glue that keeps us together as we service our customers across the country. And across our analyst firms, Gartner, Forrester, both recognized we're in 2020's data integration Magic Quadrant for Gartner. We are a leader. Also with their data quality for 2020, we are also a leader there. And then Forrester's Enterprise Data Wave, Fabric Wave, we're also a leader in 2020 there as well. And today, what we're going to be talking about is really how that makes a difference to customers. So achieving clarity and agility and compliance, the kind of three big pieces of every business use case and every customer's view of their data is one of the things that we as a cornerstone of our business. And driving key business outcomes, not just talking about speeds and feeds, not just talking about, the day-to-day interactions with one target and one source. Really what we want to talk about is how do we drive that all the way from one little piece of data all the way through to big decisions that matter at customers to change their business and give them their best interactions with their customers. And improving productivity and reducing costs. This is every business is looking for this, from IT to marketing to finance to C-level executives. They want to figure out ways to be more efficient and actually keep their costs reasonable, not just doing the same things over and over again just to keep the lights on. They really want to be focused on how they can move the needle, but also at the same point making sure that they're not overspending when it comes to adopting new technology or making a difference in the world of their customers. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Meena Ram today. Meena Ram is the head of data enterprise management at CIBC. Meena's been a driving force in data for many years, now with a very in-depth understanding of the role that data plays in IT organizations, but also, and more importantly, how to make data valuable to and trusted within their business. Her commitment to data excellence is unrivaled in the market, both banking and IT. And I'm very honored to have her here today to chat with us about the struggle that is probably very familiar to everyone on this call, which is delivering trusted data at speed. So good day, Meena. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thanks, Big Data and AI Toronto, for having me as well.
So let's start the next slide with a topic that we've spoken, you and I have spoken a lot about, which is empowering the business and individuals with their data.
Yes.
So at a high level, talk to us a little bit about what it means to you, like in your day-to-day. How is this impacting what you do every morning when you wake up?
So our business is cornerstone is making decisions fast. They need to be able to make decisions fast. They need to be able to rely on the information that they've got. So what's critical to us is to ensure that our business partners are empowered by their data. They know that it's available. They know that it can be trusted. They know that there is no second guessing, like what ifs, is this right? Is this wrong? That element of doubt has to be eliminated from their data to be able to make critical decisions.
Great. So when the business approaches you and talks to you about their initiatives, their data, are you seeing, as you work more and more with data and you get deeper into it, and that thought of data expands across the enterprise. Are you hearing similar concerns, or your internal customers, the people that you service regularly that are through that data, are they coming back to you with the same concerns that you may have had 2 or 3 years ago? That are they starting to feel those same kind of trust issues and talking about data and the reliability of that?
I think with the rapid change in data and technology, I would say over the past few years, the concerns around data has improved, right? Once upon a time, there was always questions. Is it this source? Is it this report? Is it this location? And we've gotten better. We could be better at knowing more about our information. But our business partners today have concerns around quality and risks around what that data means. If it's not quality controlled, for example, there is always the risk to any organization. It could be that you're misreporting numbers, you're representing information, you are having to redo a report because a few of the elements, we got it from the wrong source. So it's important to be able to eliminate that doubt, as I said earlier, and making critical decisions seems to be the way that our business partners feel empowered, right? If they know where it came from, they know what source they have and why they have that, is one of the reasons for why I think they are shifted a little bit more towards the more data centric view, right? The other component is around, I would say, the quality aspects around measuring the consistency of that data. Historically, a lot of environments, a lot of systems are very manual. There's a lot of hand coding, and there's always errors in that, right? There's no documentation around business rationale or intent or purpose. So it's for a system, it's usually engineered around systems. So if now we truly want to empower the business, we have to make sure that they have that information at their fingertips.
So that's probably a great transition into the next piece here. So when we talk about that quality data,
Mhm.
there's so many aspects to it. There's so many steps that go through trying to figure out what are our standards, where do we go from. So when we talk about let's talk about kind of that high level view of empowerment through data and the risks. So how serious a risk is poor data quality? Let's just go from the highest point. What do you view as those risks?
I think that with the amount of regulatory pressure institutions have today, it's important to all regulators, all business heads, that the data that they've got in front of them right now is 110% accurate. It's complete. There is no hanging components. If there is any doubt that that information is not correct, let's just say you're reporting your quarter end numbers as an example, and you know what, you didn't make $1 billion a year, and in fact you only made $1 million a year. That makes a big difference, right? If you're at the mercy of regulators, you are either in one reporting threshold or you're not, right? So to be clear on what those numbers mean, what it represents, comes down to the quality of that data. I think many organizations could be crippled by a lot of manual intervention or the lack of not having a process around data quality and understanding what data quality really is. It's beyond just saying, is my name Meena Ram? Right? It's actually the format of how you spell Meena Ram, right? Or maybe it's the way that in a system I don't lose the A at the end of Meena, right? It's all of those kinds of checks that come into play when we talk about quality. And at an organizational level, whether you're a small organization, whether you're in banking or insurance or healthcare, the quality of data metrics are the same, right? We look for the timeliness of data, we look at the completeness of data, we look at the accuracy, we look at the historical view, so we look at the reasonableness. We need to be able to explain changes in that data, to be able to truly explain that and not say, oh, it was because of the manual coding that had happened. That's why. It's is the next shift that I think data management offices and groups really need to start to formulate thinkings around.
So we've got a couple of points up here I know that we've talked about before. So let's start, and you touched a little bit on each one, and I'd like to dig into them. So let's start with the critical decisions. Connecting trust and decision making is seems like an easy thing. It seems like saying, yeah, why? Of course, I want to be able to have trust in my data, and that'll make my decisions better. But it's more complex than that, and I think, and from our conversations, I know that you probably have some good views on this. So how integral is this connection to you and to CIBC? How do you, first of all, value that, and second of all, how do you make sure you make that connection on every single interaction, and make sure that you're not viewed as, oh, there's IT doing stuff with data, but we have real things we're doing with data from the business standpoint. How do you make sure you build those trust bonds and help those decision making situations?
Well, a lot of it within our organization, and as I think with many organizations, it comes from a foundational practice, right? And I think a lot of those critical decisions and beginning to help with that decision making is the foundation around data management, and focusing on key data, like knowing what data puts us at risk, right? Whether that, again, that's regulatory, it's the security aspect of it's reporting just to your peers in a different department can put you at risk because they will use that data with some point of view, right? So it's part of our fabric. We definitely want to be able to make sure data quality is considered in everything.
And so moving on to the second one, you've touched on this multiple times, so I'm going to assume that you have some thoughts on this too. So, getting trusted data into production and maintaining a high standard of quality over time slows many organizations down, right? Someone builds a job, builds some sort of data quality, builds a process, and then leaves. And now you have this that you're, this job that's been built or this process that's been enacted. Really, what are the risks you associate with kind of those hand coding during rapid transformations? People want things done even quicker now. 6 months isn't an option anymore. 3 months isn't even an option now. People want to see stuff. I'm going to give you something I jotted down on a napkin, and next week I want to put it into production. Or even worse, next day I want to put it into production. Right? I've got this great idea. How do you look at those rapid transformations and the risks associated with hand coding, and how do you end up mitigating those risks?
Great question. So this is my favorite word, lineage, right? So to be able to know what changed, what was built, what does it mean, comes down to that audit trail, right? And to be able to move from this manual intervention of coding certain things and not putting an inventory of what changed to what is what I believe is cornerstone when you're in that rapid transformation mode, right? To be able to shift irrespective of an individual being there to explain, oh, I coded it like this because of this, right? Having enough metadata or information about that data available so that you can just hand this to another developer or another engineer to take that forward is the way that companies need to start to think about transformation and data management. Those things go hand in hand. They cannot be done one without the other. And fortunately, the way to do that is really with lineage. And data quality is really about that, understanding what changed, when, who, what, and when.
So and just kind of a side question. So when we talk about, so you've talked about data quality and data lineage and metadata. Do you see those as different parts of kind of your world, or are those, kind of sewn together to as that part of an overall, data management kind of view of the world?
I kind of, in my mind, personally, I don't think of those things as standalone. I think of them as stages. So you first got to know your data, then you can start to put parameters around it. That's really your quality one. And then you build metrics around it, really does then elevate you to the next level. You can't do one without the other, right? So you can't say, right, I'm going to wake up today and do data quality. It doesn't quite work that way. You kind of need to know enough information about that data, which is metadata, to first position what needs to be quality controlled. Like, what quality do you really need to exercise? You wouldn't be running reasonability checks on every element, right, that you've got in a system, right? Because reasonability would be for a particular type of quality practice. So I do think that there are stages. You have to look at them incrementally, but we should always be looking at this front to back. We shouldn't be just looking at, right, I'm going to focus on metadata alone, and 2 years from now I'm going to look at quality. You should be looking at layers of metadata and layers of quality to be able to really accelerate in this world, especially the data world, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So the last point is around material impacts. So can you elaborate a little on the material impacts that poor data quality and a lack of trust in data has on your organization, and how you see, not just yours, how you see it in a broader standpoint too, as you look at the overall, economics of data in industries across the board?
So it's almost as though you can think of data quality as a clothing item. Like you buy what you pay for, right? So like if you get a poor quality t-shirt from a low end retailer and you wash it once or twice and it's done, would you continuously keep buying that? The cost of keep doing that keeps expanding, right? Whereas you can spend a little bit more time, a little bit more money, and buy something a little bit more better quality, and you've got it for years. Data is the same thing. You spend a little bit of time, it needs a bit of time and investment, and you will reach a point where the quality of that data is something that will mitigate risks for you. The worst thing that could happen to any organization, in my mind, is that you publicized, if you broadcasted information that's incorrect, right? That impacts an individual or individuals or an organization or a brand in many ways. It could be financial, it could be reputational, and at the bottom line of it would have come from data. It would have come from what data was available and what was presented at that time that warranted that decision. So it's not just one organization that this impacts or one industry. I think the economics of data is that we are in a world where we make decisions off that data. Should I buy this phone, this smartphone? Should I buy this item from this website? All of those things is key to data management and to data quality specifically.
And another side kind of question here around regulations, around regulatory compliance and regulations and doing things. There's so many businesses that are, from healthcare to banking to insurance. There's, the list goes on and on, where, and especially when we're so close to the US and they have their own regulations, how do you view the impact to the organization of, how important is that regulatory reporting? Obviously, it's of the utmost importance. I shouldn't ask you that question. I should say the impact of not being able to manage that, and through metadata or lineage or whatever the case may be. How do you guys view that part of your business?
It's an interesting question, Dion, because the US regulators and the Canadian ones, they won't have a requirement, right, that says, oh, thou shalt have data governance or data management in place. The question is, there's not a requirement for that. They will expect that foundationally you have this practice that is the cornerstone as to how you are able to adjust to their requirements. And what regulators are doing now, as we see with such as GDPR, right, and with other privacy regulations that are hitting the US now, and they will eventually come to Canada, is that these rapid changes are forcing organizations to understand their data better. They need to know, do you have this type of privacy related element? And if so, which system did it originate from? Did we collect it? Did we ask these disclaimers? Did we put some restrictions around knowing how we can share this information across an institution? They're asking these questions, and the way it is done, the foundational practice in which this is done is through data management, right? They ask for a level of governance, they ask for a level of controls, they ask for demonstration, like show me how you are inventorying this information front to back, right? Show me how you knew this data changed by who and what process, right? And tell me the metrics. Like, are you able to proactively know where the data needs remediation, right? And regulators are not asking for, show me that you've got a metadata model, or show me you've got a data quality model. They're asking you for the end state. They're asking you for, show me that you got this metric, and how did you get to this metric, and how can you trust that metric?
Right. Great answer. I think it's not an easy task, and I think it's not always just a simple answer where you go through there. So let's transition to the positive stuff. So we've talked about risks, we've talked about that kind of stuff. Let's talk about the value of trusted data. I would suggest that the best place to start would be your definition of trust. What do you see as, what does trusting data mean to you?
So, coming from a data background, right? In order for me to trust the value of my data, ultimately comes down to governance and controls. It comes down to the management of data and the risks around that data itself. So essentially, let's put this into context, right? So if I was to give you, Dion, a tin and say, listen, eat this, right? You'll first look at me and go, what is it? Like, what are you feeding me? Is it cat food? Is it dog food? Is it beans? Is it macaroni? Like, what is it, right? The fact that you're asking all of those questions means that you don't know what it is, right? And the same thing comes to data. Why should you trust that I'm giving you something you can consume? Similarly, we need to have that same level of the interrogation for our data. If we're not asking the questions of what is it, when can I use this, where can I use this, why should I use it, ultimately means that we can't trust the data enough for consumption or for usage, right? So let's look at that first question. What is it used for, right? So we need to ensure that we put enough context on our data to be able to put enough governance around cataloging, inventorying of data, so that we are in a position to describe what it is, right? If we cannot say what it is, it's not much use for anybody to trust it. The next question of, like, where did it come from? Again, when we look at data in the industry, we look at it in practice, oftentimes we're asked about, like, is it from a book of record? Is it from a trusted source? Is it from this source? Is it from that source? Knowing where it came from obviously plays a role into should you use it, right? So again, if I gave you this tin and you're like, did you make this, or did you get this from this store? Is it, can I trust eating it? Am I going to get sick? Is it not past the due date? Like, each of these things, again, is the same type of question we can apply to data. Like, where did it come from? Can I actually, is this data stale? Like, when was it last updated? In order for me to use it for the intent that I intend to use it for, whether it's for analytics or for a report or for the regulator or for a metric you need to provide to your management team, all kind of comes down to having the information around the operations of that data, right? And the last question about why are we interacting it, right? The way we use data today is in so many forms. We have a huge reliance, again, on making a decision. Should I buy this Android phone or this iPhone? Should I buy this tablet or should I buy this? And where do we go? We go to sites, right, to tell us information about it. Someone has done the research, someone's inventoried it for you. Or if you're in an organization, does this metric mean this? Did I make money? Did I lose money? Am I not? Do I need to change my investment? If so, which investment should I need to look at? Each of these things is all coming down to how you learn to interact with it. And data no longer is just about a system anymore. We have our phones, we have unstructured streams, we collect information on our phones through apps, right? So the fact that we can trust that we've got it from a reliable source, the fact that we know what it is for, we know how we need to use it, is the way that I believe we begin to trust the data that we have. And if there are enough governance and controls without overkill, right? Like, nobody really wants to be in a business where governance is, the hammer and everything comes to a grinding halt. It's about putting a right amount of controls in place for certain things, whether it's for metadata management, and that's really to tell you what it is, right? The label that we all look for on tins or packaging of food, right? Or where it came from, we look for a brand, right? Do we look for the retailer brand or we look for a notorious brand, right? And to know that we can eat this because it's good for you, or it will meet a need, is the same way we should be interrogating data, like I said. And essentially, when we get to that point, the range of trust increases. There will be no question. You're just going to go and pick this going forward. Then we enable our ability to get to a level of curation for engineers, and we get to a point of a self-service for anyone to use and really monetize the data that we have available to us.
Perfect. That's a great answer. So, Meena, I think that's pretty much all the time we have, but I guess the data journey continues. So I appreciate all the time that you took today. Um, Meena, always a pleasure to chat with you and get your insights on this stuff. I'd like to thank once again Big Data Toronto as well. Thank you guys so much. Anybody who's interested, please stop by our virtual booth. We do have more sessions going on throughout the event, so please come by. And Meena, once again, great chatting with you. Thanks a lot and have a great day.
Thank you. You too.